It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. We're back on track after our week off before last week. Came in feeling a little rusty, but we're back to full health, feeling great, and feeling especially great because Bruce Feldman of The Athletic dropped his annual Freaks list on Monday, as we predicted or anticipated. And therefore, we get to talk about some Feldman's Freaks today.
Yeah, it's a preseason tradition, I would say, is going through and crunching this list and looking, who's the number one guy? Is he going to repeat number one? We got Jeremiah Smith here, Ohio State. Obviously, we feel pretty good about that. Caden Proctor, number two, if you're into offensive lineman. That one wasn't a surprise either. But as you go down the list, you see some of these guys that are going to be eligible for the 2026 class, and you're saying to yourself, what does this mean exactly for the class? What does this mean for these players? Mostly it means these guys are just animals on the field. Like you turn on the tape, and generally you see exactly why they made it on this list.
And what is I think every year it's kind of like, what does that mean? Okay, you're a Feldman's freak, you're super athletic, but like, are you a good football player? And I think, like, when we do this every year, it's kind of a way to like look for some diamonds in the rough, or guys maybe that we haven't like seen have like a full breakout yet, but like they certainly have the tools to do it, and maybe that happens in the upcoming season. So like, let's get prepared for that and learn a little bit about some of these guys. Last year, I I went back and looked. Bashal Tutin was in our
Mm-hmm.
freaks list draft from last year. So, what does that mean that we were talking about Bashal Tutin in August last year? Nothing, but it's just fun because the because the Feldman's freaks list, it has a way of a guy like Tutin, where it was like we weren't thinking about him, talking about him, didn't even know who he was going into last season. Find out, oh my god, he's like a insane, like fast running back with a little bit of size. That's kind of cool. Ends up being one of the better backs in the class last year. So
Yeah, you go up and down this list, and like you said, looking at last year, and you see like Travis Hunter, number two, obviously like one of the blue chips. Jeremiah Smith, number seven, coming in as a freshman, and then debuting as number one this year. So a pretty good start to his career from the athletic side of things. Nick Emanwari, if you're on the defensive side of things. Abdul Carter, number 12. So like if you're looking through this list and you're like who's on this list? Like, well, what does it matter? And Feldman usually has his finger on the pulse of what makes these guys athletic and also good at football. It's not random guys picked out of a hat. It's usually these guys are going to end up being something, and you can pick a few diamonds out of the rough if you can have a critical eye when you scroll through this list. So
and
here we
if you
are.
are interested from the NFL draft angle, like the offensive tackles and the
Mm-hmm.
defensive linemen in particular, like those are going to be guys that you're talking about come NFL draft time. Like the freakiest freaks that are 6'7", 328, and it's like that guy's getting drafted.
Yep.
So in one way or another. So it's always fun to kind of peruse the list, get a little bit familiarized with maybe some names that you weren't aware of in college football that are some of the standout athletes out in the game. And then in a few weeks, when games start up, hey, now I have even more reason to turn on Cincinnati because they have three freaks that I want to check out. Um, but before we jump into our list, we're doing what we always do here. We drafted 10 players, five each, guys that we thought were particularly intriguing ahead of this upcoming season, guys that we're going to keep our eyes on a little bit based off of some of the numbers that Bruce Feldman reported. But before we get into that, we did not include most of the names that we've talked about, like throughout the last few weeks, in particular, guys that we're talking about as potential first rounders. So a player like Nick Singleton, who we are a little bit lower on today, but who did go pretty high in our little theoretical dynasty rookie mock draft, because a lot of folks see him as a potential round one, even according to that tankathon mock, but a higher day two player. That's not exactly where we are today, but there's a reason why people think that. And it's because of some of the numbers that are reported in the freaks list, like Nick Singleton running a 4.33, or like flirting or breaking Saquon's squat record. I can't remember what it was. He broke Saquon's squat record of 6'6". He did 665.
That's it.
The amount of weight that if I tried to pull it off the rack would instantaneously kill me.
Yeah,
So
just like my legs would bend and then snap. And then
yeah. So yeah, Singleton, it's absolutely no secret that he is an absolute freak. That is, a lot of the appeal of Nick Singleton right now. Another Singleton, Eric Singleton, player that I'm a little bit higher on than you right now, but Feldman calls out that he was a decorated high school sprinter, which I think we talked a little bit about on our wide receiver rankings, because that definitely shows up in his game. But some of these numbers, I mean, 10.200 meter time. I'm not like a track, savant or anything, but that sounds pretty good to me. Anything close, very close to 10 in 100 meters seems like a good thing.
How fast can I run 100 meters? And then I'm like, divide that by 3, and that's impressive, probably.
Yeah. And then also noted for, being a little bit of a smaller player, 180, 190 range, but squatting 550. Once again, a weight that would
good.
destroy me. Yeah. And I'm
ton.
heavier than he is. So
yeah.
Your favorite player in the draft, Eli Stowers.
Yeah. Love
He's
Eli
back.
Stowers. Yep.
He was on the freaks list last year. We talked about it because he was listed at 225. So we were like, we don't need to think about this guy, right?
All right.
Well, think again. And he's back on the freaks list. This time, 6'4", 235 is what he is listed at, and noted for broad jumping 11.3. My Lord, 39-inch vertical, and a GPS time of 21.3 miles per hour. Not bad stuff for the 240-pound player. So, and then last one before we jump into it, another tight end, Kenyon Sadiq, who was my number 2 tight end. Can't remember where you had him. Somewhere in there, 4, I think.
I'll check.
A lot of the appeal with Sadiq as well is that he's also a freak show. So no surprise to find him on the list. But some of these numbers are kind of shocking. A 41.5-inch vertical for the 255-pound Kenyon Sadiq. Not bad. And just strength numbers, 435 on the bench. He is the definition of like the freak tight end in this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these guys that we're leaving off are guys that we've talked at length about over the last 5-6 weeks. And so if you want us to go in depth about those players, you can just roll back the tape. Not a lot has changed between now and then, other than like the freaks list coming out and then like some practices starting, which doesn't glean a whole lot. So until games start, that's probably most of what we'll hear. We obviously will have Superflex coming up for the Superflex people, and then some more stuff sprinkled in. But as far as in-depth breakdown for the top players in this draft, the rollback those, that's going to be the best content that you can get from those. Here we're digging a little deeper and seeing maybe what other players fit into this class and have a chance to rise up to end up in the cream of the crop.
So kicking things off, I would say that we both kind of had a cheat pick We both kind of started out like, let's get a layup in,
Yeah.
and then we kind of worked our way down. So you had the first pick, and I absolutely do not blame you, nor am I surprised that this was your first pick, but you selected.
I selected Nyck Harbor, of course. The first back-to-back number one player that Feldman has ever had. That was in 2023 and 2024. This year didn't make number one, made number three on the list. But Nyck Harbor, we've talked about also throughout this process, but couldn't really leave him off the Feldman's Freak List episode, given that he's kind of the poster child of this list for the last couple of years, and why I kind of felt like I had to take him here, number one overall. So Nyck Harbor, obviously not like the most statistically relevant wide receiver, not the most like fundamentally sound receiver, whatever, however you want to put it. But the kid is extremely strong and extremely fast. He's 6'5", 235 pounds. And have him, Feldman has him listed here 6'5", 245. And I choose to believe that because the guy is built like nobody I've ever seen play the wide receiver position. So ran a 10-11 100-meter. So like you said, anything around that 10-second mark is really impressive, especially when you're, hauling 235 pounds at the time. A 20-20 200-meter. So pretty much the same time, double it again. So not getting tired over a 200-meter. Second team All-American. And this is, again, as somebody that's 6'5", 235 pounds. Like, he's hauling weight real fast, and that kind of brings him into this, like, weird role with South Carolina because over 2 years he has 510 yards receiving on 34 catches and 4 touchdowns. So, you scroll through, like, receiving leaders in the NCAA. It's going to be a while before you hit Nyck Harbor. But you turn on the tape, and it's just like, what? Like, how can we not get this guy going? And so I'm hoping because of, like, what he is, and you probably heard me say this on the wide receiver episode because I put him in at number 5, just because I'm like, how can we not make this work? Like the frame and the athleticism and some of the like catch point skills and the yak, like he's not a great blocker, he's not a great route runner, like that's all true and that's all really important to the wide receiver position, but I just like love what he can do physically and I like obviously, but I just would love to see it work out.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been negligent to not talk about Nyck Harbor here because we've been talking about Nyck Harbor since he was a freshman on this very episode
Yeah.
as the number 1 freak, now the number 3 freak. But now that he is finally draft eligible, and there's a lot of excitement about that because of like all of the things you just said, which is, I mean, these numbers are truly asinine. And to think about the fact that like he might just be one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen play the wide receiver position. Please figure out how to play the wide receiver position because it would be really cool if this player ended up developing into a legitimate wide receiver. And this athleticism size combination was used alongside of like the technique and all of the things that go into being an actual good player at this
Mm-hmm.
position. So I think there's a lot of hope. I think everybody is like kind of crossing their fingers and like hoping to see some growth out of Harbor this season at South Carolina because maybe we don't end the year and he ends up going into the draft. But if there's development, if there's like a sign of like it's starting to the pieces are starting to connect here for him. Maybe it's just one more year. We're talking about him in the 2027 wide receiver class. And wouldn't that be something if
Yeah.
Nyck Harbor was a legitimate player in that sort of a class?
You almost want him to like put it together this year just so he can like find his way, maybe at the end of the first or top of the second round, because if you throw your hat in that ring in the 2027 class, you're just bound to like kind of get lost in the shuffle. Kind of like if you push back, like Travion Henderson kind of happened with him, where it was like if he'd have come out in 2024, he'd have been the premier guy. And then, you roll yourself back to 2025 and like, yeah, you're still a good back, but there's like 10 other guys that are also really notable. So hopefully Harbor can put it together this year so he doesn't have to deal with the competition that's coming next year.
All right. So that's one of the freakiest freaks ever. My first pick in the Freaks draft was potentially the best running back not named Nick Singleton in this collection of players, and that was Jaydn Ott. So once again, a little bit of a cheat because we have talked about Ott. He was in your top 5 running backs. I believe he was number
I think he
5.
was 5. Yeah. It was a long time ago.
It's kind of nuts that it was. But Ott is, I mentioned at the time, kind of more of an incomplete for me because it's really hard to look at his 2024 season and make it make sense because he was coming off of such an incredible breakout season as a sophomore, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns for Cal. And it seemed like he was poised to kind of carry on that momentum and end up being a player that was in the 2025 NFL draft. And he completely fell off, only 385 yards last year at Cal. Kind of inexplicable. He had some injuries going on, and I think that certainly played a part in, what ended up happening. But I think around that even were maybe some other circumstances. So he's out. He's heading to Oklahoma, and I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about what we might see out of Jaydn Ott in this offense this year. The kind of quote unquote change of scenery, new year, hopefully fully healthy. And the freakiness that you see on his film in terms of the speed is backed up with some of the numbers that Bruce Feldman reported with Jaydn Ott. 21.6 max velocity, 21.6 miles per hour. Honestly, I
I'd have
would have
thought
thought it
higher.
was faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's definitely a burner,
I
and
thought he'd have pushed
that's
like
fast, but
20. Yeah. Oh no, 20, 21 miles per hour. But like with a guy like this, you'd have thought getting around like 23 miles per hour when like you think back to Marvin Harrison Jr. when he was number 1 on the list, and it was like I think he was top 5
he was
at the time. And he was pushing like 23, and it was like, holy moly, like that's fast. And so you'd think a guy like this could get up to a point like that.
yeah, maybe he'll even top that number this season. We'll see because we know that he has that part. Some of the numbers here in terms of his strength profile kind of not necessarily surprised me, but he's not really a player that's running with a ton of power. But I mean, he certainly has a lot of power in the weight room. 485 on the squat, 370 on the bench, 315 power clean. I mean, certainly a strong player at 5'11", 208 pounds. So maybe we see a little bit of that, this season as well. I mean, he hasn't been like terrible. Highest yards after contact per attempt number for him was that breakout sophomore season at 3.39. So for a player of his size with his speed profile, that's not a bad number. It's just you think of these more like quintessential, power backs or backs with a lot of power being closer to that 4 number. So we'll see. We'll see what we get from Ott this year. I'm excited to see it, and hopefully he breathes a little bit of life into this running back class as well.
Yeah. First time I've seen this number, propulsion force, that
Yeah.
Feldman broke out for Jaydn Ott. Strength staff measured his peak propulsion power at 7,792 watts. His propulsion force was more than 3 times his body weight. I'm like, sounds good, man. I felt like I was like reading a science textbook for a second. I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds 7,700. I felt like back in physics class where I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
these damn Cal guys,
yeah,
it's like, well, we actually did a science experiment where we turned them into like a rocket ship.
yeah.
And so this is what
And it
his,
worked.
and it worked. Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked. So here's the numbers, but
Yeah. So I am excited to see in the change of scenery. I mean, I liked him at Cal, especially 2 years ago. Last year is a little weird. There's some injury stuff hanging around, and a lot of excuses here and there. And I would love to see it just kind of get cleaned up and be good to go with Oklahoma. And so I mean, I'm not surprised by any of these numbers. I'm not surprised that he's on the freak list, given that like his main attribute that I loved was that breakaway speed, the acceleration, especially get up and going in a hurry. And seeing like it feels like he might be like even a little bigger than I thought he was. Like I know he's listed at 208, 210 around there, but he feels like he's like built pretty solidly. So I am pretty excited to see what he can do in a different style offense, maybe a more pro style offense. I don't know exactly if you like the transfer. Maybe it's not more pro style because like Oklahoma's not going to be pro style either, but I think it's closer to the NFL than what Cal's doing.
All right, next up, another wide receiver, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that we have talked about a player on multiple or back-to-back Freaks List episodes.
I think you're right. This is Chris Hilton, wide receiver out of LSU. Last year he was on the Freaks list. I had the number. Okay, so I had the 2024 Freaks list up. I accidentally closed out of it, and now I don't have my free article anymore, so I can't open it back up.
Okay, I'm on it.
Disaster strikes. But he's 32 on this year's Freaks list, which is what matters. But he's going into his 5th year at LSU, which might raise some red flags. But if you think about who's been in that wide receiver room, maybe you can excuse it a little bit because of how good these wide receivers have been coming out of LSU. But he, 5 years ago, was the highest ranked of LSU's talented wide receiver class, which had Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh in it. Hilton has kind of been on and off the field with injuries, was an incredible track athlete, as a lot of these guys on this list have been and will be. He has had like a lot of pretty much ups and downs, has been playing like third fiddle at best in a lot of these offenses. We talked about him last year. We're kind of hoping that last year would have been his breakout season. Didn't end up happening. And now we, come into this year and we're like, well, you don't have a ton of competition in this receiver room. Nussmeier is looking to take this leap into the NFL. Gonna need to spread the ball around, find a target that he can favor, maybe can bring another one of these LSU wide receivers to relevance. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. Has hit 23.7 miles per hour. So talk about like how we're saying like 21 point something, not bad. 23, like 24 miles per hour essentially is insanity. Like we're talking about how fast you go on the street. Like you'll have people going 24 miles per hour in a car, and this is how fast Chris Hilton's running on a go route. So this guy will run by you. I don't know what a good 10-yard split is, so I'm not even going to mention that. But timed in allegedly timed in the high 4.2s on the 40-yard dash, which again, who knows what that exactly means. But I wouldn't doubt it. So very like that is the trademark for this player, for Chris Hilton. The speed pops out. He's like pretty strong of a receiver after the catch too. But I hope like stay healthy, put together a solid year, be like, if you can, 600-700 yards, whatever, show off the speed. Everybody needs a burner in the NFL, and maybe you work your way up into something that's relevant. But for now, like we just need one full healthy season as like a number 1 or 2 target on an LSU offense with a good quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same song and dance as last year when we talked about him, which, by the way, he was 38 on the Freaks list last year. But it was exactly like you said, where it was Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas were gone. Chris Hilton had the recruiting background, and it seemed like now the opportunity to maybe make it a little bit of a name for himself in this wide receiver room and on this team. And he was hurt again. And that's kind of been the story of his career. Did not play until week 9 with an ankle injury. So it's like, I'm hoping that we do get to see him this year because he was an exciting player to think about ahead of last year. And there are some names. I mean, there's like Nick Anderson, is it Aaron? I think there's 2 Andersons, Nick Anderson, Aaron Anderson, and Barryon Brown, I think are 3 guys that they have right now that are interesting. And a couple of them have transferred into LSU over the last couple of seasons. But I think Hilton, if he can stay healthy and actually maybe show us what he has, we'll see.
Yep. We'll see. That's the story of Chris Hilton's career so
Yeah.
far.
The title of his memoir. We'll see. All right. I am up with, we're going back to running back here. And I had to do this one because Devin Neal has owned the Kansas Jayhawks backfield for like 4 years. He's the all-time leading
Dog,
rusher
by
in
the
the
way.
program.
Let's,
He's a dog.
yeah.
He's been doing it since he
My
walked onto
son,
campus.
Devin Neal.
Colin's son, Devin, he was at all the Jayhawks games for 4 years, rooting him on.
That's
But now
right.
he's in the NFL, and he's doing what he's doing in New Orleans.
Go Saints.
Who's
good situation. Don't
yeah,
forget.
who they let's not forget about Kendre Miller and all this. But nonetheless, Kansas Jayhawks, Daniel Hishaw Jr. That's definitely how you say it. I definitely did my due diligence and checked this out before I got here. But so it's been tough for other running backs at Kansas to get a lot of action with Devin Neal being there, but Hishaw has found his spots and he's been pretty good in those spots for the last 4 years. Over the course of 4 seasons, he has 1,454 total rushing yards for them. A lot of that, most of that came in 2023, where there's some injuries in the Kansas offense. But over the course of his career, he's a 5.2 yards per carry runner. So he's been pretty solid in more of that number 2 role for them. But he is expected to be the featured back for that team this year. This is his 5th season and finally getting his opportunity. One of the things to note here is that he has already kind of made a little bit of a name for himself because of his physicality and his ability as a pass protector. So we're always kind of, whenever a running back is showing you that he's strong in pass protection and has some clips out there on social media, like doing some nasty stuff, picking up a blitz or something, there's always a little bit of a reason to pay attention to them because that's not a skill set that's ever out of style in the NFL. Like we need guys we can bring in and protect. So I think if Hishaw has a good season as the starter for Kansas, proves that his, 5.2 yards per carry, a little bit of power runner, can lower the shoulder, that type of skill set, along with his ability and protection. I don't know. Maybe this is a sleeper that we're talking about later on in the process. He did have 2 significant hip injuries earlier in his college career, which also impacted him a little bit. So there's that, like the lingering medical questions with him. It seems like that stuff's pretty much behind him. The freak number that I wanted to call out with him, we know that he's super strong. That's something that shows up on film. 43.4-inch vertical jump. He's 5'10", 220. He's jumping almost 44 inches as a power runner.
Means we're
That's
like easily dunking, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's throwing down. at 5'10".
Yeah.
So
And allegedly, that's up 3.3 inches from the spring. I don't even know how that works. Like you're jumping
that's
40
nuts.
inches in spring practice, and then you're like, I can do better than that. It's like 3.3 inches higher. It's nuts.
I don't
But
get it.
I don't get it either. But I get that this is a strong player with a powerful base, and that shows up in the vertical jump. And like you said on tape, it shows up him low behind his pads, just delivering punishment, just a kind of classic like meatball kind of runner where he's protecting the ball and delivering punishment to guys that want to get in his way. Whether that's a good thing or not, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But more often it is, and like as the change of pace to like Devin Neal's more kind of passive running style almost, where it's more elusive and dodging tacklers coming in as the hammer, the battering ram, really worked for Kansas, and I'm pretty excited to see him turn into like the full time, just beat you down, wear you down throughout the game, kind of like as some of the power backs in the NFL. I won't name any names at the top of the league because I don't want there to be any comps, but the guys that are getting these 18 20 carries and just wearing you out, and then they pop a big play at the end of the game, and it's like, here we go, like this is what we've been waiting for, just because these guys are sick and tired of getting in front of them, tackling them. No, I'm not saying it. Don't give me that look.
What's kind of impressive now that I'm doing a little bit of mental math. He had 46 missed tackles forced in 2023 on 121 carries.
It's pretty good.
That's like a third.
Yeah.
And I feel like Genty, he had like 400 carries, but had like 120 missed tackles forced. I mean, the percentage there, it's, is he Ashton Genty?
Is
I
he
think
Ashton Genty 2.0?
These are the
Ashton Genty
questions.
Daniel Hishaw 1.0?
Yeah, see, he's younger. He is younger. So,
Oh.
All right, let's keep talking about running backs. It's good to have some running backs. There were not many on the list last year. We had some this year, including this player.
So next up, we got Kaelon Black, who's in his second year at Indiana. This is an old player, so Austin's not going to like him. Played 4 years at James Madison. Transferred into Indiana, was kind of their number 2 back, maybe number 3, like a rotational back for them. Had 46 carries, 251, and 2 touchdowns. Has never topped 600. He had 619 yards as a career high his senior year at James Madison. But he's kind of just a fun runner. Like I was watching some condensed James Madison games because you can't really find tape on this player. But he's like a strong runner. He's really fast. Doesn't have great vision. That's his big, red flag warning, I guess. But he's 5'10", 210. He has a 40-yard vertical. Here we go. That's Superman.
Well, the movie's out right now, so I know it's on your mind.
That's the headline. Is he has a 40-yard vertical? No, 40-inch vertical. 415 bench. Squatted over 500 pounds. It's just like you can feel the strength that this player has when he's running the ball. When he can get a little bit of a head of steam, it feels like he gets caught up in the backfield a little bit, maybe thinking too hard, doesn't have the natural instincts of, some of these top running backs, especially when the O-line feels a little bit overmatched. It's kind of over for him. But when he can get a little bit of a head of steam, when he can get some speed behind him, he can really get going. And then he has a little bit of power and he sheds off tackles. Had 16 missed tackles on 46 carries. So you're talking about around that 25% rate. So had a nice amount of, breakaway runs, had some big gains in limited touches with Indiana last year, and looking like he'll have more of an opportunity this year. So a player that is interesting, is very athletic, and has, a piece of the pie in this Indiana offense this year, which should be improved even to last year when it took a big leap. So just a name to watch.
Yeah, certainly an exciting, a team that's very exciting. There's going to be a lot of eyes on it, like you said last year. So kind of a little bit of a magical season for them, and now they've seemingly gotten even better with Fernando Mendoza
Mm-hmm.
coming in, and Elijah Surratt still being the guy there, the number one wide receiver for them. Black has an opportunity now to kind of make a name for himself as the running back on this team. So I think a lot of folks will be watching Indiana this year, and maybe Black will be a player that stands out because he certainly has the athleticism to do that.
Absolutely.
And I'm up next
Yep.
with I'm excited about this one because this is the player that if you are looking for a new team on College Football 26, if you're like, I don't want like a big program, but I don't really want to do like a full ass rebuild. Like, what's like a good in between team I could grab with like a fun guy? Baylor, I think would be a great team because Josh Cameron, the wide receiver, which, by the way, wide receiver number 34.
Ooh,
I
I
know,
hate that.
I know. I was like, you're
Yikes.
out.
Yep.
He's off the board already.
Yep.
But
I'm good. Is that a DB or a running back?
if you can get past the number, which admittedly does look pretty strange out there, you kind of find a fun player. A 6'1", 225 wide receiver, described in the Freaks List article as a unique weapon. I like that. Led Baylor last year in catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns. He had 52 receptions, 754 yards, and 10 touchdowns. But what makes him kind of the weapon aspect of Josh Cameron, it's not as a runner, but as a returner. And he is a really good returner. Like probably the best returner in the country, punt returner at least. He averaged 20.7 yards per return last year on 14 punt returns. They stopped kicking to him over the last 4 games. And
the Devin Hester treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they were just like, we're done. And he, because of that, didn't even have enough returns to qualify like as the leader in punt return yardage for college football, which he would have been. So, I mean, if nothing else, the NFL will have an interest in this player for his special teams ability because he is clearly a very high end punt returner. But he's kind of a fun wide receiver too. I wouldn't say he's anything like, I wouldn't call him like a super, we got to get eyes on this guy now. Like he's running these crazy routes and he's making guys miss and he's doing all this stuff. But I mean, he's kind of fun. And especially when you consider his skill set in the open field. I mean, obviously as an elite punt returner, when he has the ball in space, he's a lot of fun to watch. Like there's a screen pass from last year where he makes like 3 guys miss and scores on it. I mean, he's just like a fun guy. He's the kind of player that if I was, in doing my dynasty in college football 26, I would just run RPOs to Josh Cameron all game and just, that would be good enough. But in real life football, I'm actually excited to see what he does this year because he did have a good year last year. A lot of these guys we're talking about, it's like injuries or they haven't had a chance yet, but we know they have the tools. Like Cameron was a guy that kind of did it last year in multiple phases of the game. If he takes a step forward this year, it could actually be a pretty exciting player that we're talking about by the end of the year.
Yeah, I was looking to see. Sorry everybody, I forgot what number Devin Hester was. I'll be transparent here.
Whoa.
Number 23. I was like, you know what? Maybe we can pull it off as a receiver if you're like that sick at returning kicks and punts that like you can pull off whatever number. Because I couldn't even think. I was like, Yeah, Devin Hester was kind of like a receiver, a corner, and a returner, like just whatever the team needed. Let's just turn Josh Cameron into Devin Hester, and that's it. And with the new kickoff rules, you kind of have to kick it to the guy, so it makes him even more valuable. So I'm ready to be wheels up for Cameron, especially if you're in a league that has kick returning stats, because I know that I'm in a league like that, and get this guy, and if he's playing wide receiver, getting you 750 yards and 10 touchdowns, and then also he's getting you 20 yards a pop on returns. Sign me up, man.
I mean, I think you just might have found a cheat code in that league.
That's what I'm saying.
No one's going to be.
The only
Cameron
guy
goes in the
that really
fifth
was
round.
Keyshawn Nixon.
Right. I mean, come on. Yeah, I'm excited. He won my heart. Turning on that Josh Cameron highlight reel that I watched to be like, "What's your story?" I'm like, "I'm in."
Yep.
Sold me. This is Josh Gordon 2.0. I see the Baylor green and a wide receiver that's kind of taller, and I'm like, "This is Josh Gordon."
You want me to tell you about a highlight reel that sold me on a player?
Yes.
Is CC Ezirim. If you've never heard of this player, he's a tight end out of Toledo. The reason you've never heard of him is because he has 5 catches across 2 seasons at Toledo on 6 targets. Pretty good conversion rate. He has 109 total yards. And you're like, why are we giving this guy any airtime? Fair question. Because he has a 7-minute high school basketball highlight tape on YouTube. This is a 6'7", 245-pound tight end that has a 40-inch vertical and has clocked 22 miles per hour. And all that, doesn't turn into anything on the field so far. But you can just tell, I mean, he was mainly a basketball player. He's a 3-sport player in high school. He was mainly into basketball, switched over to football, and is like clearly very raw as a player, and does not really didn't understand the physical demand, I don't think, of the position and how to run routes and all that. And that's fine. And now it feels like we're having a little bit of a revelation with this player, and has 22 yards per reception, and is a big play kind of freak of nature. Throw it to him in the back of the end zone, let him box somebody out and go up and get it. And so I'm just hoping that this is a real player and not just another one of these, physically gifted tight ends that don't really pan out to be anything. So I'm just I saw this player and I was like, I just want to see what this is all about, and can't find any tape of him from college football, obviously. Found one highlight reel that I think was taken by his mom in the stands with an iPhone, and it she can't follow where the ball is most of the game, so you can't really see anything. But he plays safety, and it's all right, why not? So this is all obviously very new to him, playing tight end, but I had a lot of fun just researching this player. And so I'm excited to see if he can turn into anything and, be the first person to plant my flag on Ezirim Island.
I mean, the announcers everywhere are very excited because they have so much material to talk about when they're calling a Toledo Maction game.
Yeah.
But I mean, he kind of fits the profile of a player that can become buzzy if he shows you anything this year.
Yeah.
If he shows you anything, it's man, he's still pretty raw and he's doing that. We got to talk about this guy. And then pretty soon he's transferring to, Texas next year or something. But no, I mean, he's 6'7", 245. That's no joke, and especially with these numbers. I mean, 10-10 broad. That's pretty gnarly. 39-inch vert. Damn.
Go watch him dunk on some small school kids. Just if you have 7 minutes to kill, type in CC Ezirim and just watch him block people off the glass. It's just he has kind of the Zion Williamson effect of like he's so much better than everybody else, except he's not that good at basketball. So like it's that much more fun because it's like he's dunking on people, but it's like obvious that that's all he can really do. So it was sick.
I'm in. I know what I'm doing after this. All right. I think I'm talking about a tight end too. I am. So there was a few tight ends on this list this year that were exciting. I'll shout a couple of them out. We have Marlon Klein, who is the potential heir to Colson Loveland in the Michigan offense. And we also have Khalil Dinkins, who is the potential heir to Tyler Warren in the Penn State offense. So a couple of, guys to watch on kind of premier tight end programs right now in college football, but I am going with the premier tight end program in college football with Notre Dame and Eli Raridon,
Right. I'll take
which
it.
is once again verified
Yes.
100%. But
I trust you implicitly. So here we go.
Raridan was supposed to be like the next guy in the lineage. I mean, you can always go into the recruiting rankings every year and find the guy that Notre Dame got at tight end, and you can kind of just pencil them in as a player to watch in 2 or 3 years' time. The problem with Raridan was that he tore his ACL his freshman season and then tore it again like 10 months later. So double ACL tear, never really got a chance over his first 2 years to get on the field. He was the number 2 recruit in his tight end class. He was a 4-star player. Like he's coming in with all of this pedigree, momentum, and we really didn't get to see him until last year. Last year was the first time he played. I think he appeared in every game. He started 3 games. It was a very limited season for him. Obviously, Mitchell Evans was still there, but only 11 catches, 90 yards, but 2 touchdowns for him last year. I think this one is more of like we know that he's a freak because he was always a freak. He got hurt, and that's why we haven't really gotten to see him. But some of the numbers from Feldman for Eli, what 34-inch vertical, 910 broad, 350 on the bench, 535 squat. I mean, he at 6'6", 255, which is where he's listed at. I mean,
Big fella.
he's a big fella. And so those are impressive numbers, certainly at that size. If we get to see him play actual football this year and like actually do the things that he was supposed to do from the beginning, he can absolutely still be a player that ends up kind of making some noise and putting his name into this tight end group. Obviously, there's going to be, the medical flags with him because of the ACL. But I mean, why not save your best for last and end up kind of writing the Cinderella story after all?
Yeah, I liked the limited amount that you can see out of Raridan. It's tough when you have the ACL stuff, and it kind of takes you a while to get back on track. Like you don't really know when a player is up to full speed. It usually takes a full season until they feel comfortable enough on that knee to really cut off of it. And when a lot of your game is your athleticism and your size and your weight and using it to be deceptive, it's tough to really evaluate when exactly you should be seeing this player at full strength. But regardless of all that, I am hoping to see what this player can put out in this upcoming season because of what the little that you've seen in the past. So with these numbers and the size and obviously the Golden Dome, you have an expectation, and hopefully you can live up to those expectations.
I forget where I read it. I don't think it was the Freaks List article, but I was reading something about Raridon, and it was like every single Notre Dame starting tight end since like 2013, like something ridiculous has been drafted to the
Yeah,
NFL.
that's crazy.
Like it is a streak that is unparalleled. So I think it was Anthony Fasano to Mitchell Evans was like the timeline. And so it's crazy, and they certainly have the pipeline rolling. Hopefully, Raridon gets his shot to be the next one.
From Fasano through Mayer, every Notre Dame tight end drafted from 2006 to 2023, and that was as of April of this year. So add another one to the list.
Yep,
Here we go.
pretty crazy stuff. All right,
Let's talk
we
about a
have
national champion.
hell yeah, 2 IDPs to close the program.
That's right, because they're people too, so we saved them for the end. Uh, I got Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Um, so last year, Styles finished second on the team with 100 tackles, 10.5 TFLs, 5 broken up passes. Former Ohio State linebacker Lorenzo Styles is his dad, if you recognize that name. So Styles, 6'4", 243, 11-foot broad jump, unbelievable, 40-inch vertical, squatted 675 pounds, unbelievable, and comes in at number 10 on the freaks list. I don't know if I mentioned that. Styles said that he's a little faster than Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith, who's clocked 23.5 miles per hour. But Styles clocked in his highest at 23.2. So, numbers don't lie, they say. But 23.2 is not so bad either. But that apparently him and Jeremiah are very competitive in the weight room. And he's also good on the field. So this guy, I mean, talk about a sideline to sideline linebacker, a guy that can fly around and then puts his weight behind it, because we don't see a lot of 240 plus pound linebackers that are athletes like this, really. So this is definitely a name I would like to add to my list of IDPs that I'll be keeping an eye on. It's hard to make that list, really, in the preseason, because it's like, who really knows exactly what these guys will be doing. But that's why this Feldman's freak list is so important, because it's like, oh, this is a name that I got to watch out for. Like, he had somebody in front of him as like the number one player at his position. Now he gets to step into that role and be the number one linebacker for Ohio State, command the defense, and just fly around and create havoc.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Styles last year, and I remember feeling like it's probably a little bit premature because he was only 20 at the time. Last year was the first season he was playing linebacker. He was a safety recruit, 5-star safety recruit, and switched to linebacker ahead of last season. And now, like you said, going into this year as the linebacker on this team, and certainly one of the best athletes at this position in the entire country. Also has one of my favorite quotes of all time, which I still have written down in my notes from last year. He was quoted saying, "It feels good to be the hammer, not the nail."
Yep. It's just like the perfect mentality to have as a linebacker.
Like, you are a linebacker.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see him. He's an absolute freak show. I think this could be a real breakout, kind of national scale breakout for him, and a player that I would not be shocked at all if we were talking about him in this linebacker group, which is kind of starting to seem loaded.
Yeah.
I mean, we only chose one linebacker, and potentially the best one on this list. There are a lot of linebackers on the freaks list this year. These are guys that are seniors or juniors, and guys that have had good seasons, breakout seasons at like notable programs. So We've already kind of talked about a little bit some of the linebackers that we have kind of already that are guys that we know are going to be, top names in this class with Anthony Hill Jr. and Deontay Lawson. But there are a lot of other guys as well that I think could end up being like, more depth kind of names in the class. But as you know, one draft spot, one opportunity, that's all it takes for these guys. So I'm really excited to see how this linebacker class progresses over the course of this season.
Yep, me too.
All right, I'll bring it home with my IDP selection, and that is David Bailey, edge rusher, now at Texas Tech, transferred from Stanford, spent 3 seasons there, 6'3", 250. He is at that size, he's a little bit more of a speed rusher, but I mean, there's a reason for that because the explosiveness and the acceleration, it's definitely there. And it translates into a 22.16 max miles per hour for him at 250 pounds. That's a little bit insane. And then also, of course, like all of these guys, has the weight room numbers to back that up. So I think with Bailey, he's a player that's coming in with, this Texas Tech transfer portal class. There's a lot of buzz about it. They've added a lot of players through the portal ahead of this season on offense and defense. So there's a lot of excitement around Texas Tech coming into the year just because of that factor alone. I think David Bailey is certainly one of the best names that they added. Last year had 39 pressures, 7 sacks for Stanford. So he could be an edge rusher. We've talked about kind of a handful of those guys like Keldrick Falk were also on this freaks list and high on the freaks list. But I think David Bailey is a guy with his athleticism and strength and the production and maybe a breakout season on a team that could make a little bit of noise this year. I think could be a name to watch as well.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Our favorite program, PFF, shout out to Chris Collinsworth. It's their highest rated returning edge player with a 90.9 last year, coming into this year with a new team. And, that shows up in the stats a little bit. It's not as gaudy as maybe some of the top names, but 15 sacks over his 3 seasons, and his best season being last year, and then obviously coming in to a new team, maybe with a little more pedigree with Texas Tech. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. It's kind of rare to see a guy that's this heavy, I guess. 250 isn't the biggest D end. But having him be, as a speed rusher, I almost kind of want him to trim down and be a linebacker a little bit. But I'm not a coach. I'm just watching these guys. So I'd like to see him, if he can keep that athleticism, pack on a little more, and end up being a real threat as a speed rusher. So. Definitely a name to jot down and see how it goes with him on a new team.
And there it is. Names are jotted. And there's a lot more where that came from because there's 101 players on the Freaks list this year. So if you happen to be a subscriber and able to check that out, be sure to do that. Otherwise, I'm sure you can find somebody on Reddit posting the whole thing for free. I mean, I don't blame you. So
don't do that though.
Yeah, no, I don't condone that.
No.
But just know that could be an option that's out there that I don't agree with at all.
Yes, but Feldman works hard and deserves, as a journalist who's already probably underpaid, to get his due from your click, and it's like $2 a month, and
that's
probably
true.
Get a free trial.
We should probably do that with Feldman. Now, if it was a Kuiper mock,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's certain names in the world that I am happy to contribute to their success. There's other ones that I'm like, yeah,
I mean, I will forever say that the cost of the Athletic is worth it single-handedly for the Beast.
Right.
Like paying for the Athletic pays for itself when you get to the Beast. Everything else is just free. So it's
Right.
like the Freaks list is like a bonus thing, and it's
Right.
like, hell yeah,
It's one of the last good deals in our post-capitalism world.
it's true. It's
It's
very true.
that and like renting a movie on Prime Video for like
Yes.
$3 is
Yep.
is
Yes. So yeah, that is our little list. 10 guys will be, kind of notating on our watch list ahead of the 2025 season. There's a lot more, obviously. There's one name I want to just kind of sneak in here because maybe of all the Freaks, this was the number in the article that dropped my jaw the most. Jeff Caldwell, who is a wide receiver that is transferring from a Division II school, Lindenwood. He is now going to be playing at Cincinnati. Reportedly, according to Feldman, broad jumped 11.9. If and if that sounds really high, it's 7 inches more than any wide receiver jumped at the combine last year, and it would have tied the all-time record. So, I mean, he was productive in Division Two, obviously. That's how he got to Cincinnati. But if Jeff Caldwell shows you anything this year in D1, just know that he's potentially going to set the combine record for the broad jump as well.
the
So
Lindenwood Lions.
hey, we need the Division Two schools in the next game so that we can do the ultimate challenge playthrough of taking Lindenwood to the SEC.
Yeah, until I'm playing Road to Glory, and the only offers I get are from Division II
Yeah.
schools.
All right. If you enjoyed our discussion about the Freaks list and some of the names that we thought were particularly interesting this year, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, TikTok, camp.dynasty. And if you are watching us on YouTube right now, be sure to subscribe and like the video before you leave because we appreciate it. And if you're on the pod feed, do all of the pod feed things like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, all of the things there if you have not done so, because we appreciate that as well.
Go see Weapons in theaters. Comes out today on Thursday when you're listening to this. So go check that out. It looks pretty sick.
I need it. I'm so ready. In the meantime, go watch Barbarian. Get yourself psyched up. And thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week. And we'll see you next week.